Okay, folks, we're on to Titus 2:12, which reads, "Instructing us to deny ungodliness and worldly desires and to live sensibly, righteously, and godly in the present age." Remember that we are making a very big deal out of context in this video series. So with this verse, we're asking, what is it that's instructing us toward these things? And we'll have to look back at verse 11 and see that it is the grace of God which appeared bringing salvation to all men, that instructs us toward these things. Now notice that the thing we're being instructed toward is twofold. The first is what this grace instructs us to turn from. The other is how it instructs us to live. Remember that all of this is given as the reason for Paul's instruction to Titus all throughout this chapter. So this is the why for everything that Paul has said up to this point. Now, with this in mind, we come to the verse which very simply says that God's grace instructs us to deny ungodliness or godlessness or just a lack of respect for holy things, as well as worldly desires, cravings, longings, lusts. Now, contrasting these, Paul says that grace trains us to live sensibly and righteously. He has referred to this idea of self-control or living sensibly numerous times throughout this letter. Living in a way that is of sober mind and showing self-control. I think I've made this point before in this series, but Christians should have, they should be the least naive people on the face of the planet, under absolutely no delusions about the way the world is and how it works, yet it is so often not the case. We play very fast and loose with the word cynical, and people like Paul or even Jesus would more than likely come across to us as people wound way too tightly. And the great irony of that, as we see in books like Titus, is that these guys are up against the most legalistic thinking there is. Remember, the problem on Crete, apart from the Cretans themselves living not godly lives, are the Judaizers, who want to introduce this legalistic system to the outworking of God's grace to people like the Cretans. So this is a very messy situation that Paul and Titus are in, and the comforting thing is that God's grace really, cuts through all the crap, so to speak, to get to the heart of the issue. It's not about legalism, like the Judaizers are trying to teach, but it's also not about licentiousness and living like a heathen like the Cretans. There is a very godly way to live that is oriented very much in the way of common sense and defined by virtue, which is a word that we don't even really use anymore, to our detriment. So I hope what we're starting to see is how the text actually does apply to us. We've come this far doing our exegetical work, interpreting things in context, and what I hope is becoming clear is that once we've come through those processes, the application of the Bible to life is actually quite simple. You don't actually have to have a doctorate in these things to read the Bible and understand it. You just have to read it carefully. Okay, that's it for this video. We'll pick up our study with verse 13.